This is a brand new playlist. I am proud to bring you the Apocrypha. I am reading the first book of Esdras, chapter 1. Now, it says the book is known, which is known as the Apocrypha, as one Esdras is called three Esdras in Latin Vulgate Bible, where it's now placed since the Council of Trent. It is an appendix of the New Testament. None of the other apocryphal books is so intimately connected with the Old Testament. Beginning somewhat abruptly with the description of the great Passover held by King Hosea in Jerusalem about 621 BC, the book reproduces the substance of 2 Chronicles 35 and 36. The whole of Ezra and Nehemiah 7, starting at line 38 through 8, line 12, breaking off in the middle of a sentence after the account of Ezra's reforms, about 398. There's numerous minor discrepancies between the apocryphal and the canonical accounts, including a rearrangement of materials and the story of the 3 young men in the court of Darius. Has no parallel in the Old Testament. The origin of the book is a matter of dispute. It's not a translation of Masoretic Hebrew text of the Old Testament, though it may represent some other Hebrew or Aramaic original. The book is quite independent of the Septuagint Greek version of the canonical Ezra and Nehemiah. The Jewish historian Josephus followed one Esdras rather than the Septuagint as his authority for the history of that period. The purpose of this unknown author was to emphasize the contribution of Hosea, Zerubbabel, and Ezra to reform the Israelite worship. The book was written after Daniel, about 165, before Josephus wrote the Antiquities of the Jewish People, 93-94 AD. A date later in the century BC is probable. Here it is. 1 Esdras. Hosea kept the Passover to his Lord in Jerusalem. He killed the Passover lamb on the 14th day of the first month, having placed the priests according to their divisions, arrayed in their garments in the temple of the Lord. And he told the Levites, the temple servants of Israel, that they should sanctify themselves to the Lord and put holy ark of the Lord in the house which Solomon the king, the son of David, had built. And he said, you need no longer carry it upon your shoulders. Now, worship the Lord your God and serve his people Israel, and prepare yourselves by your families and kindred in accordance with the directions of King David of Israel and the magnificence of Solomon his son. Stand in order in the temple according to the grouping of the fathers' house of you Levites who minister before your brethren, the people of Israel, and kill the Passover lamb, and prepare the sacrifices for your brethren, and keep the Passover according to the commandment of the Lord which was given to Moses. And Hosea gave to the people who were present 30,000 lambs and kids, 3,000 calves, which were given from the king's possessions, as he promised to the people and to the priests and the Levites, and Hilkiah, Zechariah, and Janiah, the chief officers of the temple, and gave the priests for the Passover 2,600 sheep and 300 calves. And Jeconiah and Shemaiah and Nathaniel and his brother Hashabiah, Ochiel, and Joram, captains over thousands, gave the Levites for the Passover 5,000 sheep and 700 calves. And this is what took place. The priests and the Levites, properly arrayed and having unleavened bread according to the kindred and the grouping of the fathers' houses before the people, to make the offering to the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. This they did in the morning. They roasted the Passover lamb with fire, as required, and they boiled the sacrifices in brass pots and cauldrons with a pleasing odor, and carried them to all the people. Afterward they prepared the Passover for themselves and for the brethren, the priests, the sons of Aaron, because the priests were offering the fat until night. So the Levites prepared it for themselves and for the brethren. The priests, the sons of Aaron, and the temple singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their place according to the arrangements made by David, and also to Asaph, Zechariah, and Edenus, who represented the king. The gatekeepers were at each gate. No one needed to depart from his duties for their brethren. The Levites prepared the Passover for them. So, the things that had to do with the sacrifices to the Lord were accomplished that day. The Passover was kept, and the sacrifices were offered on the altar of the Lord, according to the commandment of the king of Hosea. And the people of Israel who were present at that time kept the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread 7 days. No Passover like it had been kept in Israel since the times of Samuel the prophet. None of the kings of Israel had kept such a Passover, as was kept by Hosea and the priests and the Levites and the men of Judah and all of Israel who were dwelling in Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Hosea, the Passover was kept, and the deeds of Hosea were upright in the sight of the Lord. His heart was full of godliness. The events of his reign have been recorded in the past concerning those who sinned and acted wickedly towards the Lord beyond any other people in the kingdom, and how they grieved the Lord deeply, so that the words of the Lord rose up against Israel. After all these acts of Hosea, it happened that Pharaoh, king of Egypt, went to make war at Carchemish on the Euphrates, and Hosea went out against him. And the king of Egypt sent word to him, saying, "What have we to do with each other, king of Judah? I was not sent against you by the Lord God, for my war is at the Euphrates. And now the Lord is with me. The Lord is with me, urging me on. Stand aside, do not oppose the Lord." But Hosea did not turn back to his chariot. He tried to fight with him, and did not heed the words of Jeremiah the prophet from the mouth of the Lord. He joined battle with him in the plain of Megiddo, and the commanders came down against King Hosea, and the king said to his servants, "Take me away from the battle, for I am very weak." And immediately his servants took him out of the line of the battle, and he got into his second chariot. And after he was brought back to Jerusalem, he died, and was buried in the tomb of his fathers. And in all Judea they mourned for Hosea. Jeremiah the prophet lamented for Hosea. And the principal men with the women made a lamentation for him to this day. It was ordained that this should always be done throughout the whole nation of Israel. These things are written in the book of the histories of the kings of Judah, and every one of the acts of Hosea, and his splendor, and his understanding of the law of the Lord, and the things that he had done before, and these that are now told are recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And the men of the nation took Jeconiah the son of Hosea, who was 23 years old, and they made him king in succession to Hosea his father. And he reigned 3 months in Judah and Jerusalem. And the king of Egypt disposed him from reigning in Jerusalem, and fined a nation 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Jehoiakim his brother king of Judah in Jerusalem. Jehoiakim put the nobles in prison. He seized his brother Zarias, brought him up out of Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign in Judea and Jerusalem, and he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against him, bound him, chains of brass, took him away to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also took some of the holy vessels of the Lord and carried them away and stored them in his temple in Babylon. But the things that are reported about Jehoiakim and his uncleanliness and impiety are written in the Chronicles of the king. Jehoiachin, his son, became king in his stead. When he was made king, he was 18 years old, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. So after a year, Nebuchadnezzar removed him to Babylon with the holy vessels of the Lord and made Zedekiah king of Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old, and he reigned 11 years. He also did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he did not heed the words that were spoken by Jeremiah the prophet from the mouth of the Lord. And though King Nebuchadnezzar had made him swear by the name of the Lord, he broke his oath and rebelled, and he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart and transgressed the laws of the Lord, the God of Israel. Even the leaders of the people and of the priests committed many acts of sacrilege and lawlessness beyond all the unclean deeds of all the nations, and polluted the temple of the Lord, which had been hallowed in Jerusalem. So the God of their fathers sent by his messengers to call them back, because he would have spared them and his dwelling place, but they mocked his messengers, and whenever the Lord spoke, they scoffed at his prophets, until his anger against his people, because of the ungodly acts, he gave command to bring against them the kings of the Chaldeans. These slew young men with the sword around the holy temple, did not spare young man or virgin, old man or child. He gave them all into their hands, and all the holy vessels of the Lord, great and small, and the treasure chests of the Lord, and the royal stores, they took and carried away to Babylon. And they burned the house of the Lord, and broke down the walls of Jerusalem, and burned the towers with fire, and utterly destroyed all of its glorious things. The survivors he led away to Babylon with the sword, and they were servants to him and to his sons, until the Persians began to reign, in fulfillment of the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah. Until the land has enjoyed its Sabbaths, it shall keep Sabbath all the time of its desolation, until the completion of 70 years.